Hello everyone, the story I'm going to share today is the story of Confucius. Born in the year 551 BC in Qufu of Shangdong Province, China, Confucius' name has been passed down throughout Chinese history. His teachings and philosophies passed down through generations of Chinese families during times of hardship and times of prosperity. Confucius' father passed away when he was just 3 years old. Yet, even as a young child, he was exceptionally intelligent and eager to learn. At a young age, he had become a petty officer in charge of a granary and also took care of cows and sheep. At the age of 20, Confucius had already obtained a vast amount of knowledge and was already being praised for his intelligence and gentility. At the same time, Confucius also inherited his father, Xu Lianghe's superhuman strength, as well as his appearance. Confucius was 9 feet tall with a gorgeous countenance. It is said that he was able to drink a lot of wine at one time without getting drunk, but did not take pride in his bravery and drinking abilities. In his hometown, people regarded him as a dignified gentleman. Generally speaking, he was not the most talkative person. However, when discussing national policy, he would be cautiously direct and to the point. Whenever he entered and exited a palace door, he always bowed his head and bent over walking quickly. He was always dignified and courteous, always showing his respect to the king. He always extended every civility when meeting the guests. When pulling his cart, he usually sat upright, holding the reins tightly in his hands. While seated in the cart, he never looked around outside and would just keep to himself. He would never make any gestures when speaking to people. Once, Confucius ran out of food in the state of Chang, and his disciples were all sick. One of his disciples, Zilu, complained and asked, "Is a gentleman also supposed to be so poor?" Confucius replied to his disciple, "A villain can do whatever he wants when he is destitute, but a gentleman can preserve his integrity while he is poor." Confucius told his disciples that the moral standards of being a person would not be changed at times of success or times of hardship. It's a moral test for people who persevere in various situations and to not waver. At the age of 53, Confucius was appointed as the chief minister in the state of Lu. The position's primary duty was to protect social security. One morning, Confucius arrived in a great hall and was about to sit down. When he heard noises outside, Confucius asked his disciple, Yan Hui, to go out to have a look. After a while, Yan Hui returned and reported that the father and the son had arrived to lodge a complaint. The father complained to the son, and the son complained to the father. Confucius felt quite strange after hearing this, so he allowed them inside. Both father and son, dressed in ragged clothes, rushed in and bowed to Confucius when both started to quarrel about who would speak first. Confucius immediately slapped the gavel down on the table and said, "What sort of indecency is this? The father isn't acting like a father, and the son isn't treating the father with respect." As a result, the father spoke first while the son promptly shut his mouth and bowed his head to listen. It turned out that the two men lived together. The old man was greedy for delicious food, and the young man was lazy. The family was impoverished, and both of them often fought each other over food and drink. The two men argued over dinner again this morning. The son grew so outraged, and he smashed the only bowl in the house, causing the father to get quite irate and beat him. The incident resulted in both of their arrival to the court. Confucius became even angrier upon hearing this. However, he was not sure how to handle this at the moment. He turned to look at his disciple, Yan Hui, who was even more perplexed. It's really hard for an honest official to judge a family issue, Confucius thought. He walked down the hall, thought a little while near the window, and said to the court servant, "Put both of them in jail." Not expecting this result, both father and son panicked. They had come here wanting to have a fair judgment and didn't anticipate being thrown straight to the prison. Both of them kept shouting loudly, "We have been mistreated. This is unfair." Confucius sighed angrily. As a commoner of Zhou dynasty, you don't even know ethics and morality. Your behavior is no better than a beast. How could you dare say that you have been mistreated? Take the father to the new prison and take the son to the old one. Do not give them any food for 3 days. I want to see who has the courage to accuse me of mistreatment. The old man kept signing while being in prison. One day, he suddenly heard a chirping sound coming from the head of the beam. Feeling very weak, the old man looked up and noticed a nest of swallows. The mother swallow, holding a tiny worm in its mouth, swooped in from the window and started feeding her babies. From morning till night, the mother swallow never stopped flying in and out. The old man watched this incident with fascination as he leaned against the wall. Meanwhile, the son, who was locked in the old prison that was dark and damp, leaned against the window and looked out. There was only one big locust tree in the courtyard. There was an old crow's nest on the locust tree. He saw a little crow feeding the old crow. It turned out that the old crow was blind after 18 days of giving birth to the young crow, and he could not go out for food anymore. After watching this for 3 days in a row, the crying sound of the old crow finally awakened the young man's conscience. On the 4th day, Confucius resumed the trial. The father and son were brought out of the prisons. They hugged each other and cried when they saw each other in the lobby. Upon seeing this, all the court servants were confused and looked at each other. Only Confucius was aware of the circumstances, and he couldn't help but have a smile on his face. "Do you know that you are guilty?" Confucius questioned the son. "Yes, I'm guilty," the son answered after wiping away his tears. Confucius continued, "What crime have you committed?" The son answered, "I'm ungrateful, and I do not know how to repay the kindness of my parents." Confucius then asked, "What would you do in the future?" The son answered, "I will completely change myself and be respectful to my father." Confucius nodded his head. Confucius turned to the father and asked, "Do you know what crime you committed?" The old man said, "Now I know." "What crime?" Confucius asked. "I don't know how to educate my son." Confucius said, "Well, to raise the case without an education is the father's fault. From now on, the two of you must get rid of your bad habits and be diligent in farming. I'm sure you will both enjoy a good life." After the case had ended, Yan Hui accompanied Confucius walking in the courtyard. Yan Hui glanced at old crow's nest in the tree and the flying swallow. Yan Hui said to Confucius with sincere admiration, "Teacher's trial is unique. Teacher's idea is brilliant." Confucius' idea on teaching without distinction allowed children from families with low social status and with low income to attend to school. He had more than 3,000 students. including 72 outstanding talents who are proficient in the 6 arts of ritual, music, archery, driving, calligraphy, and counting. In terms of governing the country, Confucius believed that moral fundamentals were propriety and benevolence. In his late years, Confucius encountered more tribulations. His most accomplished disciple, Yan Hui, unfortunately passed away at a young age. Zilu died during the civil strife in a Wei state along with his son Kong Li. Knowing that the Tao did not work out in human society, along with this series of blows, Confucius' health declined dramatically. He eventually died in 479 BC at the age of 72. Confucius was the first true teacher in Chinese history. His thoughts and theories had a profound impact on later generations. In particular, his theories on parenting are worthy of deep consideration as parents today. Thank you very much for listening to the story. More touching stories will be ready for you. Just subscribe it. Thank you again.